Okay, well, welcome everybody to Entitlement to Empowerment, Roadmap to Life After High School, presented to us by Allison Malloy. Take it away, Allison.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am so excited to be here. And as Elias said, my name is Allison Malloy, and I am actually trying to share my screen as we get started here, and I am still not seeing oh, there we go. Okay. Um, as Elias said, my name is Allison Malloy. I am with Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, which is Ohio's state vocational rehabilitation agency. And simply put, vocational rehabilitation is helping people with disabilities to achieve goals related to employment and independent living, focusing ultimately on employment. And all right, is everyone able to see my PowerPoint?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, fantastic. So again, welcome, and I am so happy to be here, everyone. Just to wrap up my introduction, I have been working in the field of vocational rehabilitation for about 12 years. I am very passionate about helping folks with all kinds of disabilities to achieve their goals. Um, this is very important to me, not only as a disability professional, but also as a person who myself is blind. Um, I, many years ago, benefited from transition services growing up in Pennsylvania. And I really feel that the skills that I gained as a teenager have really helped contribute to the successes that I have achieved in my career to date. So I'm just, again, very excited to be here to give you a brief physical description of myself. I am a white female in her mid 30s. I have long brown hair, and I am sitting in a room in my house that is acting as my home office. And on this slide here, we have a picture. It's a picture of people seated in rows, and they're indoors with one arm raised, and they're standing a presenter in a formal dress shirt and tie. And I just want to let you all know that you can please ask a question anytime in chat, and I will rely on my fabulous colleagues to let me know if questions come in. I am happy to wait to the end. I am happy if a question needs to be answered before I move on. I'm also happy to be interrupted. So whatever you guys would like. So again, you might be wondering, what is vocational rehabilitation? And we often hear this abbreviated as VR. So VR is for anyone with a disability who is in the process of thinking about work. And we who work in VR, we place a special emphasis on services specifically for students and youth with disabilities. So you might be asking, how do I refer a student to VR? And the refer process is going to look different, and the minimum age is going to be different for referrals. It's going to be different depending on your state or territory where you live. But usually referrals happen online or over the phone. A teacher of the visually impaired, a parent, a transition specialist, or the student themselves can contact a local VR office and express interest in services. And to get the most up-to-date information for where you are, I would recommend just doing a search on your favorite search engine for vocational rehabilitation blind and the name of your state or territory. So first, we're going to talk about the intake process. Now, before there's a referral, before there's an intake, a rehabilitation counselor is actually able to meet with students. Even if you aren't sure, or if your student is not sure that they want to be referred, we can come to the IEP meeting and just get a chance to talk to the student, learn about them, and talk a little bit about transition services. So assuming that you have decided to move forward with the referral process, we do schedule an intake where of course we do have to complete paperwork because as government agencies, we do love our paperwork. I will say, having worked in 3 states in VR, that we try not to make the paperwork process any more arduous than it has to be, and the information that we collect is all things that are going to help us in working with our participants. During this meeting, we get to know the student a lot. We have a conversation with a student and their support system, and we learn about the student's disability, barriers and limitations, strengths, and most importantly, hopes and dreams and skills, etc. All of those things that are really going to help inform helping to plan for the student's goals. We learn about where the student might be in their thinking about and planning for work. And we get information that we need to determine eligibility for services. And we'll have information about that, more information on the next slide. Intakes can be done virtually or in person. And the location of the intake is going to be determined completely by the student and their support system and their preferences and comfort level. It's really, really helpful to have as many people from the students team at this meeting. Although it's not necessary, as a former counselor, I can say that it is highly, highly encouraged. Parents, teachers, or other key people from the transition team can be involved. And every team member has a different piece of the story and knows a little bit different things about a student's life. But of course, most especially, we want to hear from the student and keep their voice and their desires for their future central to the process. So next, we're going to talk about eligibility for VR. Now, VR does require eligibility, and this is what makes it different from school services. School services are required by law, and VR is not. So therefore, we rely heavily on schools and parents to refer students to VR. To give you an example of some documents that are helpful for determining eligibility, the IEP, something called an evaluation report or team report, or an ETR, which may or may not be used where you live, medical records, vision records, any kind of forms from a county board of developmental disabilities, if applicable, are also really helpful. So next, we're going to talk about planning with your VR counselor, because a big part of providing VR services is writing what's called an individualized plan for employment. That's a document that outlines the goal that we are working towards and the services that are needed to get there. So there's a picture on this slide, and it has 2 wheels that are connected. One has words like options, insight, and experiments. That wheel turns the next wheel with words like prepare, introduce, and review. And one of the things I really want to emphasize, it is okay if things change regarding the plan, because most of us have changed our minds about our careers a time or 10 in our life. Talk to my former rehab counselor, and they can tell you how many times I changed my major. So as students' interests or barriers to employment may change throughout their case, we can offer some services during the planning process to learn more about the student and to determine their vocational goal. So next, we're going to talk about establishing the job goal in a process that I call backwards planning. We've got a picture here. It has 3 arrows that lead to the next arrow, and there's words that go along with it. Goal leads to LMI, which stands for labor market information. We're going to talk about that in a sec. And that leads, excuse me, to services. Now, we try to plan as much in advance for what we think the student will need to achieve their end goal. And by the time a student graduates, we want to have a job goal identified so that we can get services in place. We do rely on helping to plan heavily on labor market information, that LMI. So information about how many jobs are available, how many jobs are projected, the average salary, all of that information that gives you the ability to research and determine if this goal is realistic. We want to really ensure that we are setting the student up for success by ensuring that there will be jobs available when the student is ready to start looking for employment. And the job goal drives the services we will put on the plan. So, an example that I often use when I'm emphasizing this with parents is that if a student is looking for an entry level job that doesn't require any higher education beyond high school, we're not going to put that higher education on that version of the plan. Now, if we help somebody down the road and they do require higher education, well, then everything changes at that point, and then we would include it. But the goal is what determines the services. So next, we're going to talk more about those special services for students that I emphasized in the beginning that we are so proud and honored to be able to provide as a VR agency. Um, these can differ a little bit again, depending on your location. I'm going to go off of mainly what is offered in Ohio right now, but talk to your local VR agency to find out more about these services. We offer instruction in self-advocacy. In fact, that's usually where we start students off, because what that allows, it allows for students to learn how to speak up for what they want, for what their desires and goals are for their future, and most importantly, to start thinking of and speaking up about the reasonable accommodations that are going to allow them to achieve success. This curriculum really helps with doing that. We help with career exploration, so starting to explore the world of work, starting to learn about different jobs that are out there, starting to learn the tasks involved in those jobs, and starting to learn about that labor market information to start thinking about, geez, this may be something that I might want to consider doing in the future. To help along with that, we also have job shadowing, which is observing a person in a workplace and also observing the workplace itself. This is so, so helpful and so crucial for developing career goals and interests. I know it really helped me to be able to interview and see how people work in different industries as a young blind person. We offer work experiences. So these are actual places where students go and get some real world temporary work experience in actual employers. So students practice soft skills, those things like arriving on time, following directions, and accepting and responding to feedback. Post-secondary counseling. So if your goal that you're going to pursue as a student does require further education, or even if you think, if you're deciding between few goals and one of them does, we look at the educational programs after high school that are available and what is needed for accessibility and all of the things that you would need to be successful in higher education. We help with finding part-time employment, and that is so, so crucial. I know that my first time, not so great minimum wage job working at a toy store during the Christmas season that I complained about every day as a 17-year-old taught me so many things about how to be a good employee, about how to interact with customers, about how to face challenges related to greeting people in a really, really busy toy store during the Christmas season, to ask questions, to deal with difficult customers who might be angry, and to also ensure that they left with a smile on their face because in part of the interaction that they had with me, that really, really put me instead for success in future employment. So I cannot emphasize enough how important it is, no matter what the job is, to get an after school job and to learn as much as you can from it. Now, the longer we work with students, hint, this means please refer students early, excuse me, the more services we can provide to students. We like to offer what we call progressive services to students. So that's to say that every year we challenge students with more services to progress them through their transition journey. So next, we're going to talk about after high school. So there's two pictures here. And the first picture shows two workers in a warehouse. And the other picture is of a group of young students sitting around a table in a library, presumably in a school setting. So we can help either before high school ends or as one is transitioning out of high school with a permanent job. And to go along with that, we offer services like job development. So this is where a person actually helps the student to complete applications, to prepare for interviews, et cetera. All of those things that we would need to do to successfully land a job. We can help with job coaching. And this is where a person actually goes to the job with a student and helps them to learn how to do the job. Things like communicating with the employer, etc. And then we can help with additional education. If the job goal requires it, this can absolutely be included on the plan. So next, I'm going to talk specifically about some services that we can provide for blind students. Now, these are meant to augment and not duplicate or replace the services provided by schools. The school is not off the hook. So we can help with technology like screen reading, magnification, CCTV, computer software, and of course, any related training to learn how to use these accommodations. We can help with more high-tech low vision aids like handheld magnifiers, or very low-tech things such as bump dots. So placing a raised dot on a device or appliance to help you to quickly find how to operate something. With my husband and I both being blind, bump dots are really big in our house and they don't cost much. So it's a very practical, low-tech solution. We can help with
Allison, we have a question. Do you want to
Oh,
take it
sure.
now or?
Absolutely. I love questions.
All right. So someone asked in chat if a blind student should be referred sooner than maybe other students with disabilities in high school.
I would say yes, because there are a lot of practical considerations that go into a blind person's rehabilitation journey that may or may not exist depending on an individual's disability if they're from another disability population. Every person is individualized, every situation is individualized. But there's a lot to consider for a student who is blind. Are they going to need extra mobility training? Are they going to need independent living skills training or technology training? All of these other really important skills beyond just the core transition services and job development skills that would go into their success as a blind person. I know I was referred to VR at age 14 or 15, and that was right around the right time. And in fact, if I could have been referred earlier, I kind of wish I had been. Every state's going to be different as to when they'll let you, but I say refer as early as you possibly can, because that just gives us as much time as possible to plan all of the various services that are going to be needed. So continuing on with describing some of those services, we do offer orientation and mobility. That's to learn how to independently and confidently get around places like a work site or a community safely, independently, and confidently. And also to learn things like when you can be safe doing something yourself, when to ask for assistance, how to politely refuse assistance. All of those kind of self-advocacy skills kind of go into that as well. So you can see how the skills kind of build on one another. We can help with activities of daily living. So teaching the student things like how to make their own lunch, how to make the bed, how to do laundry, and complete all those other chores around the house that I know that I kind of hated as a teenager, but I'm grateful now that I learned them. We can help with things like Braille training beyond what the school can provide as well. Now, I want to emphasize that we can provide all of these services or just a few of them. All services, if there's one thing I want you to leave with, it's that services are highly, highly individualized according to the needs of each individual that a VR agency serves. So next, we're going to talk about case closure. And there's a picture here. It's got the words goal achieved with a target and a dart in the middle. So typically we close cases about 90 days after the student is successful in their job goal. It can be longer than 90 days if needed. I want to say that again. It can be longer than 90 days if needed. I know the 90-day time frame can make people nervous, and I understand that. So I want you to know that you don't have to be nervous about that because everything is individualized. And if we need to go to day 95 or 102 or whatever is needed, for that person to feel confident and successful and like they have all the services that they need, that is what we will do. Next, I'm going to talk about future cases. So individuals are always able to reapply for services, regardless of what happened in previous cases. VR is available as the student's needs change. If there's a change in vision or any other disability, if there's a job change, something like a new manager or a new location, that can sometimes require more services, and that is totally okay. We are here for y'all. Some services we can actually provide without opening up a brand new case. That's called post-employment services. And then there's others, depending on how comprehensive those services are, we may have to open up a new case, but the process for doing that, we try to make as painless as possible because we can often use a lot of information from the previous case and just update what we need to get the new case open as quickly as possible. So this speaks really well to the individual who asked in the chat, and thank you for your question. When should I refer to VR? And again, I say as early as possible, please. We believe so strongly that everyone is capable of working, and there's a lot of evidence to back that up. I'm gonna provide some stats here. Youth who participate in transition programs with 2 or more paid jobs during high school are more likely to be engaged in post-school employment or education. Students who receive services from 3 to 6 community-based agencies like VR are more likely to be engaged in post-school employment or education. And the above information is taken from the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition. So next, I'm going to talk kind of about the role and responsibility of the parent or the professional in helping to empower your child or student through the VR process. So you're definitely needing to be involved in helping us to get to know the student, because like I said, everybody has a piece of the story. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to please stay in contact and please show up to appointments, or let us know if you can't. And please, please let us know if contact information changes. Seriously, this is so important. I, unfortunately, as a counselor, have had in the past to close cases because every state and territory has different rules about if someone falls out of contact, how long we can keep cases open before we close for lack of response. I have had people move change their phone numbers, change absolutely every blessed thing about their contact information and not communicate that to me. And then I have eventually had to close the case because I couldn't find them or get a hold of them. And then they've had to come back months or even years later to open a new case, all because they couldn't make a phone call and let me know that their contact information had changed. So please learn from that. And please, if you move or change your phone number, please put VR on the list of people that you contact to let know about that. Please let us know if the student needs any kind of extra support. So if there's transportation barriers related to any kind of services, if there's scheduling conflicts for the parent, we can be super flexible and we can meet before or after work as well. I want to emphasize that confidentiality is so important to us. So please help us out by making sure that we have people identified and consent forms signed for anybody who's going to be involved in student's case, anybody on that support team. So unless there is guardianship, the student becomes an adult at age 18. And even if they're still in school, so additional or new consent forms will need to be signed at that time. And even if they are prior to age 18, we will still focus our attention on the students. We want you as the parent or the professional to be involved, but we want the student to do as much communicating as possible. And we want to all be involved in empowering them to speak up and use those self-advocacy skills that they are learning, and to really drive, to be in the driver's seat as young as possible to drive their future and their planning. So you might still be wondering, why should I as a parent get my student signed up? So we've got a picture here. It's a blue push pin surrounded by a circle of red push pins. It is never, ever, ever too early to start thinking about work in the future. And although school support systems can help with some of this career planning, some of these activities, schools have a lot to do. There just isn't enough time in the day. And TVIs, y'all are some superheroes and I love y'all, but there's just not enough time in the day. You know that. VR's expertise and full focus is on helping people with disabilities to get jobs. That is our full-time objective. We believe that everyone, every single person is capable of working, and that everyone deserves the chance to try, go down a certain path, and maybe fail, and perhaps then hopefully to try again. And most importantly, I want you all to know that we meet people where they are in their disability journeys and their work journeys. So this actually brings part one of my presentation to a conclusion. Please hang on because we're going to have a lot of fun with some case studies. My contact information is here on this slide. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time. And I also want to take this moment to allow for questions if any others have come into the chat. And at this point, I will actually also stop sharing my screen so that we can go on to the other section when we're ready. But please feel free to ask questions. I am here for you guys to answer whatever you might have.
I don't see any questions in the chat right now. Any new questions?
That is totally okay. We can take them as they come, or there may be more questions that come as a result of the case studies, and I'm okay with hanging out a little bit after to answer any and all questions. So is everybody, Elia, are we ready with the, I'm going to start reading the case studies now. Are we ready with the poll questions when I cue you?
Yep. Let me, are we doing Emily first or Jonathan?
Yes, we will start with Emily.
All right. I'm ready. I'll launch it when you tell me to launch it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. So I am going to take a little bit of time now to give you a chance to kind of apply a little bit of what you've learned. Don't worry, we're not grading anybody. But I think this is kind of a fun, practical way to apply the ton of information that I've given you to some folks who are kind of a composite of people I've worked with over the years. So first, we're going to meet a young lady named Emily. Emily is a 14-year-old ninth grader who is totally blind. She is a Braille reader, and she has had some exposure to assistive technology through school. And she uses these tools to complete schoolwork and personal projects. She lives with her family, and she's responsible for a certain amount of household chores, just like her siblings. She's babysat for her younger siblings, and she really wants to get an after-school job at a store or a restaurant when she turns 16. Emily wants to be a fiction writer. So we're going to go to the first poll question.
Okay, sorry, I was on mute.
That's okay. No worries.
Yep. The first question, is Emily an appropriate referral for VR? You've got yes, goodness yes, absolutely yes, or all of the above. So you can choose on your end. Can you, the poll is, I haven't seen anybody put in an answer yet. No participation yet. I think maybe people are thinking,
That's okay.
Oh, well, somebody says yes. Let's see. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, I will be glad to help. I will be glad to help y'all out.
Somebody says all of the above.
Excellent.
And yes, so far. Anyone else? No, you don't have to answer all 9 questions right now. We're just looking at number 1. Just number 1. Which is Emily an appropriate referral for VR? And a couple of people are saying they can't submit, but they're putting it in the chat. So Ann Loy says yes. Sorry, Virginia. You can just put your answer in the chat, then that way we'll read. Okay. Rachel says yes. Now, Virginia says yes. So it looks like we're overwhelmingly yes, and we have a few, all of the above.
Excellent. Well, any of the answers you chose are right, because because
Awesome.
the answer is definitely all of the above. And so Emily is a great referral to VR, because of course we meet people wherever they are on their journey. So Emily's teacher, knowing this, she sends a referral to the local VR agency, and rehabilitation counselor Melissa attends her IEP in order to learn about Emily and to talk about transition services. She schedules an intake appointment with Emily and her mom for another day. And at the intake, Melissa makes sure all of the paperwork is completed and signed, including a consent form for Emily's school. They talk more in depth about Emily's life and career aspirations, and they make an initial plan to begin services once Emily is determined eligible. So now we've got another poll question.
The second poll question is, and so we're only answering number 2. What information can the school or family provide for eligibility? The first choice is vision or audiology report. The second choice is ETR. The third choice is IEP. And the last choice is all of the above. All of the above.
All of the above. Getting all of the above so far.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Yep.
All of the above
All of
again.
the above.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Well, you guys are obviously great attendees and paying attention, because the answer definitely is all of the above. Any of those documents, any or a combination of those documents, because of course, the more information we have, the better can help in terms of determining Emily's eligibility. And that's exactly what happens. Melissa is able to make Emily eligible for services quickly because she has all of the paperwork she needs to collect records from the school. Melissa describes the first services that are available to Emily and helps her to choose a provider for these services. Melissa explains that most students begin with learning about self-advocacy, and Emily and her mom agree that it would be good for Emily to learn how to more effectively speak up for what she wants. She begins to receive self-advocacy education, and then she moves on to career readiness and exploration, where she discovers that it would be difficult to earn a consistent living as a fiction writer. Uh-oh. All right. With that, we will go to poll question 3.
Okay, poll question 3. What should we do with Emily's VR case now? Close her case. She won't be successful. That's the first choice. Second choice, change her job goal to fast food. Third option, teach her how to donate plasma. And the fourth option, start looking at other job goal options. Look at other job
Look at other job options. Yeah, other goal options.
Excellent. You guys are really getting this.
Yep.
Fantastic. Looking at other goal options, and even in closely related careers is exactly what should happen when a student's initial goal is perhaps not the best fit. We are not in the business of crushing dreams in VR. We are in the business of empowering and helping the students to make an informed choice. So this is what happens with Emily. The provider actually helps her to research some other career goals which are closely related to fiction writing. Her plan is written with a tentative goal of journalist because she likes books with journalist characters. I do too. And she wants to continue learning more about this industry. And this plan is written with the understanding that her goal or the services could change. And during the planning meeting, Melissa works with Emily and her mom to try to anticipate the services she will need in the future. And even though Emily does not yet know which college she will attend, she learned through her research, so again, she was empowered to learn that she will need at least a BA in journalism to become employed in this field. So our next poll question is a true or false.
So the true or false, now that Emily's plan, her individualized plan for employment, the IPE, is written, nothing can change ever. True or false?
Getting false, false, and false.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The answer is false. Flexibility is the name of the game in VR. The plan is never set 100% in stone, and things can change as the person's needs related to disability or career aspirations change, because very few people know what they want to do in high school. And we acknowledge that, and it is totally, totally fine. So that summer, Emily attends a career exploration program. She is exposed to a number of industries. And one of the shadowing opportunities occurs at a local newspaper office. Emily meets a reporter who is eager to answer her questions about the industry. She stays in contact with this individual throughout the rest of high school, and she periodically calls and emails them to ask questions about the journalism field. Got another true or false question here.
Sorry, I was on silent again.
That is okay.
Number 5, now that Emily has found a mentor, she no longer needs VR and her case will be closed.
Getting false. False. Lots of falses.
Excellent. Yes. Good job, everybody. The answer is false. There is so much more that we can do to help Emily. It's great that she has a mentor. We encourage this, and we will do everything that we can to help get people set up with a mentor. But that is not the end for us. There's more that we can do. And so with Emily, the following summer, she participates in a work experience program. And through this, she learns about important work behaviors and attitudes like showing up on time, teamwork, appropriate work attire, and accepting and learning from constructive criticism. She did so well in the program that the provider thinks she is ready for a part-time job. Emily begins this service, and within a few months, she is working part-time in a local bookstore. Rock on, Emily. But this brings us to another true or false question.
So the number 6, true or false, now that Emily has found a part-time job, she no longer needs VR and her case will be closed. True or false?
Getting some falses. False.
Lots of false.
Several false answers.
Fantastic. The answer is absolutely false, because Emily's goal is not written for finding a job in a bookstore. Her plan does not have that goal. Her plan has the goal of journalist. She hasn't achieved it yet. Finding a part-time job is just a really crucial step along the way. So we are going to continue to help Emily. And so we do. As Emily's senior year approaches, she receives counseling on post-secondary options. She chooses to take her core courses at the local community college. She and her family complete the financial aid paperwork, and her plan is amended to reflect the amounts which VR will contribute for tuition and books. Now, this brings us to yet another true or false question.
Okay, number 7, when VR is involved in college, completing the FAFSA and applying for scholarships is optional. False, false, false.
False.
You guys are totally rocking this case study thing. That's awesome. Yes, the answer is false. It's a little bit nuanced, so I am going to provide just a little bit of explanation at this point. As a VR agency, any VR agency where I have ever worked and where I have ever heard of services throughout the country, is considered the final source of funding. So we are the ones who kick in with financial support after any other financial aid options have been explored or exhausted. So we do require that everybody applies and fills out the FAFSA. It doesn't matter if you get denied or if you're not eligible through FAFSA, we still need to see that. We need to see if you are or not able to receive any kind of financial support through other means. Now, the thing about scholarships is we don't 100% require that folks apply for scholarships, but we highly recommend it. Let's face it, applying for a scholarship is something that teaches a lot of skills that can get reinforced in terms of advocacy, in terms of polishing up your writing skills, and that's all going to serve you in future life as a student and as an employee. So I say fill out as many of those scholarship applications as you can, because who doesn't love some free money out there? I mean, I'm just saying. So going back to Emily, she starts courses at the local community college and participates in unpaid internships during the summer. These are arranged by her contact at the local newspaper office. In her second year at community college, Emily is accepted at the local state university. And that brings us to our next poll question.
So number 8, what kind of support can Emily expect when she transitions to a new campus? The first choice is Emily is coached to live at home. Blind people can't live on their own.
Can't live on their own.
The second choice is Emily is told to grow up. She is 20 years old now and still needs to learn to live on her own. Emily's VR counselor and the college coordinate with Emily to determine the kind of support she will need to navigate safely on campus and in her home. And then the last choice is she participates in mobility and ADL training so she can navigate the campus and live independently in an apartment.
We're getting
It's the third, looks like the third one.
the third.
That is absolutely right. You guys are doing so well.
Someone
she does.
The last choice.
Okay, yeah, that technically, and I may not have indicated that well when I was putting these together. Technically, that's part of the next part of the story, although it is important. Yeah. So if you chose that, you are right too. So everybody has done well. Thank you. So Emily does participate in mobility and in ADL training so that she can navigate the campus and live independently in her own apartment. Emily graduates and she receives help looking for work. There's actually an opening at the local newspaper office, and her job developer helps her to create an excellent cover letter and to craft a tailored resume as well. Since Emily is known at the office, she feels very comfortable and confident during the interview. This shows, and she is hired. And that actually brings us to question number 9.
There we go. Question number 9. Now that Emily has a job, VR wishes her luck and closes her case. True or false? We've got true and we've got lots of falses.
All right, yes, the answer is false, although case closure is the eventual end goal. As soon as someone is employed, we don't just lock the door and say good luck. We make sure that they have everything that they need to be successful first before we discuss case closure. And you may remember that even after that happens, you can always come back. I always used to tell my clients, we're not locking the door. We are closing the door, and you can always just knock on the door and come right back in and work with us again. And this happens for Emily. VR and Emily's new employer work together to make sure she has all of the reasonable accommodations she will need. And Emily's case then is eventually closed successfully after Melissa has ensured that Emily has everything she needs to continue being successful. And Melissa assures Emily that if she needs anything in the future for this or a different job, she can reapply for services. So that is Emily. I hope that was
Allison,
fun. Yes,
yeah, and we had a question come in during that time.
sure.
If you want to take it. So the question
Oh,
is,
absolutely.
I understand that merit scholarships do not count as a resource that lets VR's financial support responsibilities. Is that correct?
So good question. Very good question. So in Ohio, I am 99% sure that that is correct. I don't know, though, if that applies across the board. So I would check with the VR agency in your particular state, because I can only really speak with something approaching confidence to the state for which I work right now. But I know it's true for Ohio.
And this person thinks it might be a federal rule. So
That sounds right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds right. I always encourage folks to do their own research and ask lots and lots and lots of questions, whether it's of me or the agency with whom you're working, because knowledge is power. So thank you so much for that question. So next, we're going to move on to our final case study. And this is a young man whose name is Jonathan, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him here. Jonathan is a 16-year-old 10th grader with congenital visual and hearing impairments, a mild intellectual disability, and he's of short stature. He wears hearing aids, and while he's had some exposure to assistive technology and low vision aids, he struggles with reading and writing. He lives with his family and mainly helps with folding and sorting laundry. Jonathan was referred by his support services administrator at the County Board of Developmental Disabilities following a conversation in which Jonathan expressed interest in working in a nursing home. He is close with his grandparents and enjoys being around older people. And that brings us to question 1 on our poll for Jonathan.
Okay. 1 second. Oop. Let me get a Jonathan. There we go. Wouldn't let me do it right away. Okay. So question number 1, true or false? Jonathan is not a good referral. He has too many significant disabilities. True or false? Got lots of false coming in. False, false, false.
Excellent. Yes, the answer is false. Remember that we meet everybody where they are, no matter their number of disabilities or the functional limitations and barriers that they face. We are here to help everybody explore the world of work, and we are just delighted with every referral. So Melissa's back. She's busy. And she attends Jonathan's IEP in order to learn more about him and to talk about transition services. She schedules an intake appointment with Jonathan and his dad for another day. At the intake, Melissa makes sure all of the paperwork is completed and signed, including a consent form for Jonathan's school and the local county board of developmental disabilities. They talk more in depth about Jonathan's life and career aspirations and make an initial plan to begin services once Jonathan is determined eligible. And again, she's able to make him eligible for services quickly because she has all of the paperwork she needs to collect records from the school and the County Board of Developmental Disabilities. So this next question I kind of already answered for you, but we will go through it.
Okay, number 2, what information can the school or family provide for eligibility? The first choice is vision or audiology report, ATR and IP. Second, forms from the County Board of Developmental Disabilities. Third, medical records about his short stature. And fourth, all of the above.
And we're getting lots of all of the aboves.
Fantastic. That is the correct answer. Any or all of those are going to be really, really crucial and helpful in determining a really solid eligibility for services. So Melissa helps Jonathan to choose a provider who specializes in working with people with multiple disabilities, including intellectual disabilities. And she explains that most students begin by learning more about self-advocacy. Jonathan, his dad, and his support service administrator agree that it would be really good for Jonathan to learn about how to more effectively speak up for what he wants. He then moves on after starting self-advocacy to career exploration, where he learns that work in a nursing home often involves being around older people who are sick or who are struggling in some way. Jonathan determines on his own that this might upset him too much. But Jonathan also enjoys hotels, so he thinks he might want to work at a hotel as a laundry worker one day. And that brings us on to the next question.
Okay, so question number 3, true or false? Jonathan's case is closed because VR only works with consumers who want advanced careers. Looks like there's a lot of
Getting false.
Mhm.
False.
Fantastic, you guys. The answer is absolutely false. Again, we meet people where they are. We work with people no matter the level of job that they want. Everything from entry level to advanced. We are here for all of it. If it's a dream or aspiration you have, we are here to help you to explore that. It is everything that we do. So Jonathan's plan is written with this tentative goal of laundry worker. And Jonathan knows that he would like to transition straight into working after high school. So Melissa helps Jonathan and his team to anticipate all of the services he might need to reach this goal. Orientation and mobility, activities of daily living training, and help looking for work and job coaching are all included on the plan. Jonathan participates in a summer career exploration program where he is exposed to different industries. He learns a lot by talking to one of the workers at a warehouse with a large loading dock where boxes are moved and sorted. Now, Jonathan likes to exercise and he's physically strong. So he wonders if perhaps this might be a good goal to pursue as well. He has the opportunity to try both the laundry worker and warehouse jobs the next summer as part of a work experience program. Now, Jonathan finds out that he gets really distracted easily when he is given too many opportunities to socialize in the laundry facility. And that leads us to our next question.
Okay, next question. Jonathan can't be successful in work. Case closed. True or false?
Getting false. Lots of false.
You are all correct. Again, flexibility and being able to pivot and go in a different direction through these career exploration activities and the things that the student learns about themselves and the things that we learn about them as professionals is the name of the game. So we are here to help when a change needs to be made in goal and direction. Because Jonathan finds that he gets less distracted when he's moving boxes. So his plan is amended. And as Jonathan begins his senior year, he also begins job development. He works for a little while on building his confidence during interviews, but eventually he gets a job at the local Amazon distribution center. And mobility training helps him to be confident going to and from work. And his job coach helps him to actually learn the job. Rehab tech, which is assistive technology, is also involved to determine if there are any modifications to that can be made for his short stature as well. The job coach also works on a communication plan to accommodate Jonathan's hearing loss on the job. So Jonathan's case is eventually closed successfully. Now, 2 years later, the management team changed completely at Amazon. And this understandably threw Jonathan off a little, and he needed some extra support to make it through the transition. His case was reopened with documentation from his former case and updated medical information. And Melissa was able to approve job coaching to get Jonathan acclimated to his new manager. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Jonathan. That is that case study. And I am hoping that these case studies really helped you all to learn and apply some of what we learned today practically to some individuals. I am just so honored and privileged to have been able to be here and present to you all today. I hope to see you again as part of other presentations. And again, I am available to answer any questions that you all might have at this time. And again, please also save my contact information and feel free to get in touch at any time, because I know that sometimes questions come up after.
Hey, Allison, this is Olaya. Before we went on into the case studies, there was a question that popped up.
Sure.
Should the blind student be referred sooner than other disabled students in high school?
Yes, I had addressed that question.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Kind of as it come up, but the short answer is yes, absolutely. I think so, because there is just more to plan in terms of other related services like independent living, like orientation and mobility assistive technology. So yes, absolutely. Please refer as early as is feasible, given your situation as a family and given when your location begins accepting referrals.
And Allison, we did have another question pop in here.
Sure.
So do students with multiple disabilities need to be registered with other agencies to get VR services?
They do not. We encourage people with multiple disabilities to be registered with as many different support agencies as are available and necessary for them to get the full comprehensive services that they can benefit from. But no, in order to be found eligible for vocational rehabilitation, you do not need to be registered with any other agency at the time. But we will gladly help if you want to learn about other agencies that are available, like a county board of developmental disabilities or a mental health board. We would always be happy to provide those information and referral services to help facilitate that referral if it was something you were interested in.
And I'm not seeing any more questions. Richard Retta, our colleague, put in a link to the transition hub here in chat. So,
oh, thanks, Richard. Awesome.
yeah, we have a thank you, but no other questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for taking the time. This is so important, and again, a real passion area for me. It's been an honor and a privilege to be able to present to you today, and I'm just so glad to have spent this time with you.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna pause the recording. Okay, well, thank you so much, Allison, for this great and important information. I think is really going to help parents who are on the call get the VR counselors involved in their students' case at school to make sure that we are starting as early as possible to get them going. So we really appreciate you coming on and sharing all your awesome knowledge and wisdom.
Thank you so
And
much, Allison. Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, thank you. The pleasure's all mine.
Yes, so we'll see you again on another webinar with more good information.
Thanks. I'll be delighted.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, have a good weekend, everybody. Don't forget to
Thank you,
bring your
everybody.
clocks forward an hour.
Bye, everybody.